Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Lindsay Monau.
And I'm Patrick Franco, the yoga director at YogaRenew.
And today we're going to be doing a little interview series with Patrick, asking him a few questions about his journey through yoga. So Patrick, first question for you. What made you take your first yoga class and what was that experience like?
That's a good question. I distinctly remember being in college and going through the process of asking myself what else is out there, the spiritual journey, and kind of poking around at different spiritual traditions. I did have a physical education requirement in college, so yoga was offered on the schedule, and I signed up for that course, which was a yoga course. I thought it was going to be more physical, but it was mostly philosophical, and we sat around a lot. But there was one class out of the whole semester that was physical practice, and they brought in another teacher. And we did about an hour of the poses, and immediately I was like, this is it, this is what I need to do, and this is the path for me going forward the rest of my life.
Great.
So.
That's so funny that only one class you did asana, you just sat around and talked about philosophy the whole time?
Philosophy and like different yoga traditions,
cool.
And meditation and breathing practices, which when I was 20 years old or 21 years old, I was interested in, but I was more interested in the physical practice at that time.
Yeah, for sure. That's really cool. And I think that's being offered at a lot more colleges and universities now. So that's a great option and a great entryway into yoga. Okay, so you're practicing yoga now out of college. And what is that kind of catalyst that gets you from taking yoga classes to wanting to be a yoga teacher to pursue your first teacher training?
So I was a poor college student.
Same, like we all were.
I didn't have a lot of money, but I did invest in a couple yoga DVDs. And so I started taking those and watching those classes, specifically Rodney Yee, who many years later I got to actually take a real class with him in person, which was a highlight. But I was doing those DVDs and, it only took me so far. So then I sought out some local yoga studios. I popped in a few different ones, and then I was home from college visiting my parents, and I went to this local suburban yoga studio, and the teacher there, who I'm still friends with, Liz Aiken, who's a dear friend, was my first teacher, and she's really the one that inspired me to keep coming back. And from coming back so many times, she started suggesting yoga books to me and other practices and other teachers, and then said, you might want to consider a yoga teacher training, which I hadn't really thought about before, but I kept it in the back of my head. And then a few years later, I wound up doing my first teacher training.
So you graduated your yoga teacher training, and then what made you start teaching yoga, or what was your life like at that time when you graduated? Were you able to start teaching right away, or were you doing something else and kind of took a while to get started?
I was fortunate in that I did have an opportunity to teach right out of teacher training. The studio that I did my training at had just opened another studio across the country, and a lot of the yoga teachers went with them to open up this new studio. And so they needed like 10 or 15 yoga teachers, and I just was fortunate at that time in New York City to be at the right place in the right time. And I did start teaching right away, but I also had a full-time job at the time. I was a city planner working in government on bike lanes and pedestrian crossings and stuff like that. But my teacher training was, I guess you can call it an intensive, and I spent so much time at the yoga studio over those 4 months during my training that it just was like a natural progression to continue that by teaching and spending more and more time there.
Great. Well, thank you so much for that. It was super insightful to learn a little bit more about your story.
Thanks, Lindsay.
And thank you all so much for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe and like our channel for more videos and content from Patrick, myself, and the other teachers here at YogaRenew. Take care.